Alright, so we are moving on to our next method of solving, which is called completing the square. So we have some directions to make a square with an area of x squared minus 2x plus 1. So I know I need an x squared minus 2x. Here's one of the minus x's. Here's another minus x. And 1. So the dimensions of my square would be x minus 1 and x minus 1. So I made this square. The sides are the same. I split my x's in half, so I could put half up here and half down here. 1 is a square root. Then it asks if I can arrange these into a square. Well, if I put these down here, I only have 1 right here. And so this is not quite a perfect square. I would need 3 more little ones to make this a perfect square. Just keep thinking about what we're doing here. Do these tiles create a perfect square? Well, if I turn these sideways and I use these instead, I would have 3 here, and I have 2 right here. And I would still need 7 more little yellow ones to make this a perfect square. So I took my 6 x's and I split them in half to put 3 up here and 3 down here, but I still need a little bit more. So yesterday we ran across some of the problems that weren't perfect squares, and now we're going to talk about how we can solve those even if they're not a perfect square. So we're going to start with this. We have x squared plus 4x equals 5. If I just put my x squared plus 4x here, I split my 4x into 2 groups of 2, and I need 4 more yellow ones to make this a square. So I can actually do that. I can add my 4 yellow ones here. The only problem is that if I add them here, I also have to add them here. This is the first example that's on your paper. So underneath the problem, I need you to write this. So now we're going to add 4 to both sides in order to make this side a perfect square. So when I do that, I have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 9. If I just add 4 to both sides, I haven't changed my equation. Whatever I do to one side, do the other side, and it's still equal. So I'm allowed to do this. Now I can do the method we talked about yesterday, because now this makes a perfect square. It's right here. So if I square root both sides, this side, it's kind of like factoring it. I'll have x plus 2 and x plus 2, or x plus 2 squared. And now this looks exactly like our problems from yesterday. X plus 2, x plus 2. Now I take the square root, and I have x plus 2 equals 3, and x plus 2 equals negative 3. So here x would equal 1, and here x would equal negative 5. That's really kind of messy. I'm going to take a moment here and be honest with you that I do not prefer this method. I feel like it's more work, but you are required to know how to do it. So we're going to be practicing it, and I'm going to have a good attitude about it, so I need you to have a good attitude about it. Some people really love this method, so let's try another one. I'll have 7 on this side. If I split this 6 in half, that shows me I have 3 and 3. In order to fill this in, I need to add 9. So I need to add 9. So if we add 9 to this side, now we have to add 9 to this side. Remember, keeping things the same. So then this side I'm going to have 16 on. And here I will have, I already can see that my factors will be x plus 3 and x plus 3. So I have x plus 3 squared equals 16. So I can take the square root of both sides and have x plus 3 equals 4, and x plus 3 equals negative 4. Solving for x, I get x equals 1 and x equals negative 7. You do have this example on your paper. Make sure that you have written things down before moving on. The next few are also there for you. So we're going to try another one. We're kind of take away the tiles because you're not going to have tiles with you for the test. So the way that I look at this to know what to add here is this is going to have to be, I'll have negative 2 x's. So I split this in half and it would be negative 2 and negative 2. So then I square that, which means this has to be a 4. So I have to add 3 to both sides. I'll show you with the tile so you know what I'm talking about. So if I put a tile here, in order to split my negative 4x, I'm going to have 2 on each side. So this is always, you split it in half and then square that number. So half of 4 is negative 2 times itself would be 4. So I have to add 3 to both sides in order to make this a 4. So then I have 4 total. And then I'd have 10 on this side. So my factors would be x minus 2 squared equals 10. So I take the square root of both of those. X minus 2 equals 3.16. Positive and negative. And then when I add those, let me do this right. X minus 2 equals 3.16. So I add that. So one of my solutions would be 5.16. And x minus 2 equals negative 3.16. So that solution would be negative 1.16. So those are my solutions there. We can also look at it in a box. And this one talks about the splitting in half thing that I was talking about. So this helps me know what I need to add. So if I split this in half to complete the square, this would have to be x and a 4. This would be x and 4. So this has to be a 16. So I'll add 16 here and add 16 here. So then my factors would be x plus 4 squared equals 25. Square root of both sides. X plus 4 equals 5. X plus 4 equals negative 5. So this solution would be 1. This solution would be negative 9. Okay, so you have 5 more examples on the front that I'm going to need you to work on your own. And we're going to talk about those tomorrow. And then on the back you have a couple, or something a little bit different. So we just looked at equations like this. Now we're going to look at some equations like this. For these equations, I hope you notice that the x's have a coefficient. These x's have no coefficient, these x's do have a coefficient. So, if there's a coefficient, which you don't have this example, but if there's a coefficient, before we complete the square, just divide everything by 2. And now this is what we're left with. And now we can complete the square and do the square root method. So we can, this would be split into 1 and 1. And this is already 1. This is already ready to be squared. So the square roots, my factors would be x minus 1 equals 4. Take the square root of both. x minus 1 equals 2, which would be x equals 3. And x minus 1 equals negative 2, which would be x equals negative 1. So on the back, you have some examples to do. Like I said, just divide first to get a single x. So you'll divide this one by 2, divide this one by 2, divide this by 3, divide this by 3, divide this by 2, and then you can work on completing the square. So you have some examples on the back to work on. We will discuss these examples tomorrow when you get back to class. And remember, positive attitudes.